What was the worst decision you saw someone else make? Was in Yosemite doing a hike up to the top of I think Vernal Falls. Some kid from a large church group decided to swim at the top in the, seemingly but not really, calm water at the top. I saw him get swept away and taken over the edge. The water has been running over there for thousands of years, so the rocks are smooth and there's no vegetation. There's literally nothing to grab a hold of if it happened to you. Was not in the mood to see a kid die that day. Read the signs and please stay the heck out of the water like you're told. Some more grim details. The body wasn't found that day, or the next. I spoke to a ranger and he said that sometimes they don't get to retrieve the body until the summer, when the falls have dried up. This is because often the bodies get stuck in a current and thrown around in one area at the bottom like they're in a washing machine. It's impossible to get to or even see them. I have no idea what's left of them after months of that, so stay well clear. I know a guy who was supposedly recruited to be part of Vancouver Symphony Orchestra not even out of high school. Saw his girlfriend dance with another guy at graduation and in a fit of drunken jealously punched a brick wall and shattered a dozen bones in his hand. Never played an instrument again. That is a devastating loss. A girl I dated for a few years broke up with me for a H-addict dealer. I told her this is going to ruin your life. It's been almost 10 years and I think she's finally staying clean. But she lost a decent job and had some run-ins with cops. Plus got pregnant between stints in rehab. My girlfriend and I broke up while she was in rehab, and she briefly considered a relationship with a deadbeat, bipolar, schizophrenic, addict, who had lost custody of his daughter. It was a close thing, but I'm pretty sure her life would have been fricked up had she decided to date this man. So, my fiance's cousin was donating $50 to Ton. Ton is a fundraiser held by Penn State, where they dance for hours and hours to raise money for causes like a running marathon, but dancing. He was donating to a friend and did it coins, hot glued to a cardboard backing, making a big Penn State logo. Cool looking. Well, his girlfriend decided it was so cool looking it should be framed. She went to a frame shop and got a custom frame that ended costing over $600. For something that was to be taken apart, the dabs were small, and he engineered it to come back apart easily. Shortly after it was given, he was pissed, and they couldn't even return it, because it was a custom frame. So, they ended up keeping it, as to not totally waste $600, and he wrote a check for $50 for the donation. Now they have a silly, framed, $650 Penn State logo on their wall, and neither of them even went to Penn State. You should tell them to try and sell it on eBay. Some of those Penn State fans are pretty rabid and well off. Or donate it to Penn State for an auction or something, and then you have a nice $650 deduction. My cousin dropped a full ride baseball scholarship at a college in a town he grew up wanting to move to for a girl he started dating his senior year of high school. She was 2 years younger than him. He went to a state school instead that's 40 minutes from his hometown. She cheated on him and they broke up not long after school started. Ouch. Some idiot I used to know was convinced pepper in the eye wasn't nearly as painful as people made it sound. We just watched him pour pepper in his open eyes and laughed when the screaming began. Our English teacher told us about this incident that happened a few years ago. He went to this beach with his family, but it was high tide. The warning flags were up and everything so they couldn't swim. This lady comes along and lets her 3 kids go into the water. He tries to stop them and tell her it was high tide, but she wouldn't listen and the kids go into the water anyway. Of course, the worst comes to pass and the kids are drowning. My English teacher and a few other men swim out and save the kids while fighting against the tide. When all the kids were saved, he gave the woman a proper scolding. He is a teacher after all. He says it still terrifies him to think what would have happened if the tide had been any stronger. Sounds like the stupid people that get mad when I tell them they need more than a tiny bottle of water when going hiking in 100-degree heat. One even said we will get more at a vending machine on the trail, in the middle of the desert. While over at his house, one of my best friends decided on a whim to snort cayenne pepper, for science. It went about as well as you could expect. Science rules. When I was about 7 years old I was in the car with my parents, going across the bridge from Niagara Falls, Ontario to Niagara Falls, NY. The deadly Niagara River is right below. There was quite a wait due to traffic, so we were pretty much stopped. A bunch of teenagers were goofing around, hopping out of their car and play fighting, etc. One guy hopped up on the railing of the bridge and did a handstand. It was terrifying. His friends yelled at him and he hopped down. Then he did it again and fell over the railing to his death. Yeah, I could see that sticking with you a long time. Friends sold their beautiful home for a huge loss because they were concerned about the way things were going with the local real estate market. Later that year, gentrification took root and their house was worth almost 3 times what they sold it for. This is like RuneScape level panic selling. I had a friend ask another friend to shoot him with a blow dart. First the guy shot him in the leg, but my friend thought that was too easy. He was an overly confident Marine Reserve, so he asked him to shoot him in the side. The guy did and it punctured his lung, though he wouldn't admit it. Then, trying to play it cool, he decided to go home, when really he was going to the hospital. We all followed him to his car trying to convince him to let one of us drive or call an ambulance, but he just kept saying nothing was wrong. He collapsed right as he unlocked his car and we had to call 911. He's fine, aside from his injured ego and dim wits. He was an overly confident Marine Reserve. This is how inter-military branch jokes begin. A girl married her boyfriend the summer after junior year of high school. Then they dropped out, and then split up before they were even married a year. I don't always judge people for marrying young, but this was clearly a series of bad decisions. I know of someone who got married to a guy in the army she met on Facebook whilst she was in the middle of nursing school at 20 years old. He got deployed when she graduated and after a year they ended up divorcing because their relationship was essentially non-existent. I called it. A friend signed with a professional sports organization at 18 for $1.20 million and spent 95% of it on junk without put any of it into an investment fund. My 20 years old minimum wage heart is crying. I slowed down from 100 kph to about 80 kph on a highway because I saw a large kangaroo at the side of the road up ahead. Young guy behind revved his car at me and drove really close and held his horn down, obviously annoyed. I had gently put the brakes on, so couldn't understand what his problem was. He just kept revving too. I put the brakes on again when I saw the roo start taking off in front of me. It would have safely passed in front of me, until the idiot behind floored it around my car and absolutely decapitated the poor animal right in front of me. It went up and over his bonnet, rolled down the side of the car finishing under the back wheel. I swear I saw it bend in half the wrong way. He pulled over further ahead and I drove past him with tears in my eyes. I'm shocked. He had a really nice, expensive looking car and the roo was large, so I really hope it did some exceptional damage to that loser's car, lest its death be a total waste. Thank you. We see quite a few drivers do that here in Canada for moose and deer. 1 because we love and respect our animals and 2 because hitting a moose would probably kill you. My friend on why he proposed to his controlling, angry girlfriend of 5 miserable years. I did it so she would stop asking. Wedding is in 3 months. Dude, you need to save this guy's life. Do what you can to break him out of it. He needs to understand that this girl will make the rest of his life miserable. Outside a bar, the bouncers offer to pay for a cab. Guy says no, calls his girlfriend, she won't pick him up because of the baby. He says he won't drive, walks off, gets in his car, does 80 miles per hour down a side road and gets busted for DUI. Offered a free cab ride home. Effed up his life. Could have killed someone. That ended better than I was expecting. Guy, let's call him Sean, was young, never been with a woman before. Starts seeing this married girl that was separated from her husband. He gets laid and falls in love. A few months later her and her husband decide to try to work it out for their kids. Sean can't stop thinking about her, so he figures out a way to get her away from her husband. He walks up to their living room window and shoots the husband in the head with a .22 rifle while he's playing with his 4-year-old daughter. He's doing life for premeditated murder. Holy freaking crap. I was on tour when we played Newcastle in England. Decently big gig for some smaller timers like us. When discussing with the hosts, They mentioned that we should go and give the opening act a confidence boost as it was their first ever gig. Went down and met them, talked to them, and they seemed absolutely confident as heck. Soon discovered they were an experimental band and that none of the guys actually played the instruments. That's right, they had decided to put a band together of non-musicians, not rehearse and play on the night, thinking it would make them seem creative and ambitious. It was atrocious and cringy, that's what it was. I would love to see a video. A friend of my dad sold up his house in central London and bought a place in France. 15 acres, swimming pool, 8-bed house and a smaller house. Problem is it needs tons of maintenance, lots of repair work and a small supply of staff to keep it running. Now this wouldn't be a problem for a multi-millionaire like the previous owner, but this guy isn't. He only has the money from the sale of his house, which is dwindling fast. It's also a 50-mile round trip to the local shop's pub. There's no internet and no TV. He's bored out of his mind and has no company except his missus, and I think the realization of his situation is beginning to set in. People tried to talk him out of it, but sometimes when people get an idea in their head there is nothing you can say that will change their minds. I can see them trying to sell next year, but I don't think it will go very well. I think the previous owner was glad to be rid of it, to be honest, and I don't know how long he had it up for sale. If you have Airbnb or VRBO in France, that's a great way to help pay for stuff. Americans would eat up that rural France chateau crap up with a spoon. 2 of my friends were at a party drinking. Friend 1 shows off his gun to friend 2. Tells him it's not loaded. Points the gun at his head and pulls the trigger. Forget the years of jail time. He has to live with killing his friend for the rest of his life. Just in case the message of the story isn't clear, never point a firearm at something you don't intend to shoot. Saw a rookie drinker at a house party mix Snapple with a half a glass of Everclear, thinking Everclear was a simple alcohol mixer. 20 minutes later, projectile vomit everywhere. In a redeeming moment, a few hours later, he drunkenly got up from his sleep and decided to haphazardly mop the kitchen and went back to sleep. That's a green flag of a good friend party guest. I went to a party with a friend and she smoked M. I worked in retail in college and met her there. She was really nice and we had the same sense of humor. After a few weeks she invited me to a house party in the middle of nowhere and it was all like all dudes in their 30s. She was dating one of them, and we were like the only girls. I wanted to leave right away because not only were the people weird but the house was weird too. Like there were no outlet covers on the outlets, and barely any furniture, but there was a stripper pole in the living room. She drove and convinced me to stay for one drink. When I got back from the kitchen with a beer she asked me if I wanted to smoke M. She actually called it something else but I didn't understand and only figured it out after she started explaining it to me. I declined and then watched kind of in shock as she started to smoke it while her boyfriend started telling me that it wasn't as bad as people think. I ended up calling my boyfriend to come get me and walking to the main road to wait for him because I really didn't want to be near that house. The next time I saw her at work she told me that a few hours after I had left the guy who had been punched at the party had called the cops and she had been too afraid to go back to her car after running from the house, so she had spent the whole night just walking around in the nearby woods. I quit like 2 months later and never saw her again, but my friend who continued to work there told me a few months after the girl was fired for smoking M in the bathroom at work. Second-hand story, but here we go. Colleague of a friend came into work excited about having bought a new house. Thought she'd got a great deal because they took like 50k off the original price. Why? Because they found out the place was completely infested with termites. Really, all she bought was a very expensive piece of land. That's the number one mistake of people that want to buy a house. They don't really look into it and make an emotional decision based on the price. In high school I watched a guy who didn't smoke light a cigarette and announced to a crowd of kids that he was going to smoke for 1 month and stop, just to show smokers how easy it was to quit. That was like 17 years ago. He still smokes. Once in middle school, while we were changing after gym class, this one kid decided to steal my Axe body spray out of my locker. He was completely naked and ran away when I confronted him. As he got to the other side of the locker bay he hopped up on the bench and, as if to taunt me, sprayed the Axe body spray directly into the tip of his penis. Definitely did not seem pleasant. He's just sharpening his axe. Watched someone quit their 20 per hour job, blow through 25k of savings, get ripped off trying to restore a Honda from 80s. That's where the 25k went. Lose all their friends, default on all credit cards, lose their luxury condo, move in with their grandpa, get kicked out by their grandpa, move in with their dad and stepmom, get new job for minimum wage at their dad's work. Why did all these things happen, you might ask? Severe fear of growing up. Not speculation, that's literally his reasoning. A guy with his wife and kid was speeding on a moped and blew through a red light at a busy intersection at least 10 seconds after it was red. The guy, the driver, was looking at his phone. They were smashed by a large pickup truck. Everyone on the bike killed. Watched the whole thing play out and thought to myself, that idiot is on his phone and he's gonna, oh crap, then they got hit. Unfortunately, I've seen too many similar accidents. That's a horrific tale. A whole family just gone like that. Saw a guy eat roadkill as part of a dare. Hospitalized for 3 weeks for infection that led to vomiting, that maxillin wouldn't work and that led to a hernia which led to sepsis. Only eat roadkill you've seen get hit. Was 2 grades under this girl that was graduating in less than a month. She was brilliant and had amazing grades, but she dropped out to become a manager at a Hungry Jack's, Australia. She ended up getting demoted after a few months because they transferred a new manager in that had 20 years experience. She could have easily baked the cake and ate it as well, but to this day, I can't understand why she would just drop out like that. Her parents were pissed. For your information, for non-Australians, Hungry Jack's equals Burger King. Like it's literally BK with a different name. There was one incident in my hometown that made me want to tear my hair out. A family moved in a few years ago. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl. The mother was looking for work as a teacher, but there was no openings, so she worked as an aide. My mother was on the school board at the time, and she noticed that parents were complaining about the lady as she was apparently ignoring students and favoring others, getting angry when her children got bad grades from the other teachers, etc. Mom invited her to the next school board meeting to discuss the situation, and the lady went nuts. The conversation broke down into screaming, and the lady swore she would take Mom's spot on the board. Sure enough, when election sign-ups went up online, she was the only person who ran against Mom. After months of an attempted smear campaign, Mom won the election with more than 200 votes. The lady only got 5, all from her extended family. So what does the lady do? She decides to pull both of her children out of public school as she doesn't want them corrupted by the teachers and the board. The son was a senior in high school, months away from graduation, and the daughter was in middle school. My sister was in her class, and she said the daughter screamed and kicked her mom as she dragged her out of the classroom to check her out, begging her not to do it. She left all of her stuff in her locker, and the school had to send it to them. When Mom heard the news, she was horrified and tried to talk to the family, but the father had been browbeaten by his wife and refused to put the kids back in public. It's been a couple of years since then. The mom homeschooled the kids, but the son works in the oil field and is trying to get his GED. The daughter is a complete rebel and has been arrested numerous times for drunk driving and vandalism. But the mom still has the audacity to act smug whenever someone runs into her at the grocery store. At least my children know how to live in the real world. Sure, Kathy. Keep telling yourself that when you have to bail your kid out from jail. I feel so sad for the kids. My dad watched his best friend for 35 years drink himself into an alcoholic, essentially ruining his own life. They were drinking buddies for a long time, but my dad began to suspect he had a problem and tried to shake him out of it and quit drinking himself to avoid encouraging him to drink. His best friend's eventual DUIs and increasingly protective wife led to a strain on his relationship with my dad and anyone else he knew from high school and college. Now his wife won't let anybody talk to him ever again. My dad misses him greatly and won't stop telling stories about the antics they used to get up to when they were kids, always addressing him as uncle. In the last few years we used to see each other. They started out in the sandbox at age 2 and eventually broke loose in their 30s. This is so freaking sad. Friend of ours spent £23,000 on a wedding, bought a house with her new husband and then fricked his brother within 3 weeks. A woman married my ex-husband after she witnessed him snapping my wrist like a twig, carrying on an affair with him for a year of our marriage, and knowing full well he was an addict. It was like watching a train wreck. I had to keep repeating to myself that it wasn't my problem. Have a friend who got her boyfriend's initials tattooed on her wrist when they'd been dating for 2 months. Fast forward 2-ish years. He's dropped out of college, broke a door down to get to her during a fight, has basically one friend, who's a kleptomaniac who stole her medicine out of the capsules and tried to steal her car. She left him and got the tattoo removed. Had an ex carve my initials in her wrist with a broken piece of glass. She found me at the library, blood still on the glass so I could carve hers on my wrist. Noped out as soon as I could. Not show up to a court exam so he could go to the next year. There were just 2 exams for that course, both were 50% for the total grade. He got a 10/10 on the last one. All he had to do was show up and get a 1, to get a passing grade of 5.5. Instead he didn't show up, which is a 0. This resulted in him not passing that one course and we had to pass all courses to go to the next year, so he got stuck for a year. I even considered just grabbing an exam paper, writing his name on top of it and handing it in so the teacher at least thought he was there, but I didn't want to risk it over someone else's stupid mistake. Saw a guy attempt to funnel a bottle of about 45% vodka. He actually got down a fadinkum amount of it but then vomited and went to hospital. Vodka equals ruined forever. Kid from my high school graduated and got a full ride to my state's college and left 2 months in because they wouldn't let him play QB when they wanted him to be T. He's 6'8". At work I got called to a lady that had overdosed on H. Get there, she's semi-conscious on the couch. Also drug addicted boyfriend tells us she's 2 months pregnant when we were asking the usual questions. Just reminded me of Train Spotting. So sad. An old co-worker at a fast food place I used to work wanted time off. Worked to the bone and knew he would never get it. He decided the best way was to go for some compulsory sick leave. Dude bloody stuck his hand in the fryer. Only problem was when he claimed it as an accident they reviewed the camera footage, which clearly shows it was 100% intentional. Lost his job and had a decent medical bill. Marry a drug dealer. They are both in jail now. Probably going to prison. I'm all about recreational drug use and the right to choose what you do with your own life. But Jesus, really? How did she think this would end? They thought a husband and wife couldn't be tried for the same crime. The decision, not going to work or calling in after getting into a fight with her ex-boyfriend who worked there. The consequences. 1. Got written up by the manager, her mom, leading to a fight between them. 2. The fight led to Geb quitting her job, moving out of her house and moving in with a guy she'd known for like 2 weeks who was the reason she broke up with prior ex. 3. Dropped out of college because she no longer had a way to get there. 4. Lost all her savings because she was paying all the rent on this guy's 1BR apartment that they shared with his mom and his brother as well. 5. Got pregnant by this guy but he ended up breaking up with her because she may have cheated on him. Details still unclear. 6. She moves back home and starts dating a convicted felon who's 7 years older than her. She was 20. 7. She has her baby. Her mom's boyfriend offers free childcare. She goes back to work. Hey, things are looking up. 8. Her mom's boyfriend lets the kid watch too much TV. Her mom disapproves of the convict she's dating. Another fight. She moves out again to live with the convict. 9. She gets pregnant again 6 months after her first baby is born. 10. Quits her job because she can't pay for childcare. 11. She's just freaking miserable now and we don't talk anymore. It's worth noting that immediately before this happened she stayed with me for a week and told my mom that my life was going to fall apart because I chose to take a gap year before I went to college. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.